They say love is born from light, but I tell you it is the shadow that binds. You see, the moment you step beyond the polite mask of charm and step into the darker regions of human desire, something ancient awakens. It's not lust alone, nor affection. It's the hunger for psychological gravity. Every woman, deep within her subconscious, seeks a force that can mirror the chaos of her own inner world, not to tame it, but to recognize it. When you understand this, you no longer chase, you pull. Not through words, not through appearance, but through an energy that speaks directly to the primitive circuits of her mind. It is the Machiavellian art of presence, to stand as if you know the secret of her silence. Confidence is not loudness. It is the calm of a man who has faced his own darkness and lived to smile at it. The first secret is mystery. The human psyche craves what it cannot define. Reveal enough to spark curiosity, but never enough to be fully understood. When she feels she's almost grasped you, but never entirely, her mind loops, replaying, reanalyzing, addicted not to you, but to the question of you. The second is emotional unpredictability. The brain releases dopamine in uncertainty, not in routine. A gentle withdrawal after connection, a pause in attention when she expects pursuit. This creates tension that weaves desire and fear together. But control it. Never let cruelty replace composure. The power lies in restraint, not reaction. The third is deep listening. When you truly hear her, not the surface chatter but the trembling beneath her words, she feels seen. And nothing enslaves the heart faster than recognition. Every woman wants a man who perceives the patterns even she hides from herself. Speak less, observe more. Let silence do the seduction. The fourth is mirroring. Become the echo of her unspoken self. Reflect her emotions subtly, not mimicry, but resonance. The feeling that you understand her without translation. When she feels her own essence amplified in your presence, she begins to merge her identity with yours. That is how attachment is born, not through conquest but through psychological familiarity. The fifth is the balance of darkness and light. Too much warmth makes you predictable. Too much detachment breeds distrust. But the man who walks between tenderness and danger becomes unforgettable. He becomes a living paradox, the safe chaos every soul secretly craves. And so attraction is not built on beauty or words, it is built on energy, on the silent language of power and vulnerability intertwined. You do not need to manipulate, you need to understand. For the deepest form of influence is not control, it is reflection. When a woman feels that you understand her in ways she cannot even articulate, when she senses the dark fire beneath your calm, when she looks into your eyes and glimpses the wildness she denies in herself, she will not just want you. She will remember you long after you've gone, because you have touched the part of her that most men never dare to meet, her shadow. They say desire is simple, an exchange of glances, a spark, a pull, but that's a lie we tell ourselves to keep from facing what truly drives human attraction. The first secret is not charm, beauty, or wit, it's mystery, the subtle art of becoming an unanswered question in the psyche of another. Mystery is not deceit, it's the psychological space that allows imagination to breathe. It's the invisible air between two minds where fascination is born. When you strip away all mystery, you strip away the intrigue that fuels attraction. What remains is comfort, and comfort alone never breeds desire. Attraction begins in uncertainty. The human mind, particularly the emotional mind, hungers for patterns that it cannot fully decode. This is why the unknown, the unpredictable, the slightly dangerous always lingers longer in our thoughts than the transparent and familiar. In the psychology of attachment, what hooks someone is not clarity, but the dance between curiosity and confusion. The same principle applies to power, influence, and seduction. If you can evoke curiosity, you already occupy space in the other person's inner world. Think of it this way. People are drawn to what reflects the parts of themselves they cannot yet name. A woman does not become addicted to a man because he gives her all the answers. She becomes addicted because he awakens questions within her. You must learn to become the mirror of her subconscious, an embodiment of her own mystery. When she senses depth in you, she feels her own depth being acknowledged. When she senses that you cannot be fully known, she projects her imagination into the spaces you leave unexplained. And that imagination, once engaged, creates emotional gravity far stronger than physical attraction alone. Mystery works because it taps into what psychologists call the projection mechanism. Every person carries unfulfilled desires, hidden fantasies, and unintegrated emotions. When someone mysterious enters their life, the mind rushes to fill in the blanks with these unconscious contents. She begins to imagine who you are, what you feel, what you hide. Without realizing it, she's no longer seeing you objectively. She's seeing her own unexpressed self reflected through you. And that is the beginning of addiction. This is why the most magnetic men are not those who chase validation or expose every detail of their lives, but those who carry themselves with quiet self-possession. They give off the sense that they have walked through inner darkness and returned with something unspoken. Their silence is not emptiness, it's depth. Their gaze is not demanding, it's knowing. In that calm ambiguity, the mind of another begins to wander, to wonder, to attach. But let me make this clear. Mystery is not manipulation. It's not a game of withholding affection or creating artificial distance. True mystery is authenticity restrained. It's having depth and not the need to display it. It's being comfortable, enough with who you are that you allow others to explore you slowly, layer by layer. When you rush to be understood, you rob the other of the journey. And that journey, the slow unveiling of your essence, is what ignites emotional obsession. In relationships, mystery keeps the psychological ecosystem alive. When everything is predictable, the emotional current dies. The human psyche thrives on a balance between safety and danger, between knowing and wondering. If you embody both, the comfort of presence and the tension of uncertainty, you become unforgettable. Your silence begins to speak louder than your words. Your absence becomes more stimulating than the presence of others. There is also a sexual dimension to this. Sexual desire is, at its core, an energy of polarity, the push and pull between the known and the unknown. When a woman senses that beneath your calm exterior lies a hidden intensity, her body responds to that polarity instinctively. It's not the gestures or rehearsed charm that ignite attraction, it's the energetic tension of what she feels but cannot define. The most potent seduction happens not through direct pursuit, but through the subtle invitation to discover what lies beneath your surface. Philosophically, mystery is the embodiment of life's own paradox. We are drawn to what we cannot possess entirely, because it mirrors our relationship with existence itself. No one ever fully knows another person, and yet we spend our lives trying. That pursuit is what gives meaning to connection. If you wish to be truly desired, do not offer the illusion of completeness. Offer the reality of depth. Let there always be something just out of reach, not through deception, but through being endlessly evolving, always learning, always becoming. In a world addicted to transparency and oversharing, mystery has become rare, and therefore powerful. The moment you stop needing to explain yourself, you reclaim your psychological sovereignty. The less you justify, the more others seek to understand. The less you reveal, the more their imagination serves your presence. And when someone's imagination becomes entangled with you, they're no longer just attracted, they're emotionally invested. Remember this, desire dies in certainty, and obsession thrives in ambiguity. If you want to be unforgettable, do not try to be seen completely. Be felt deeply. Live in such a way that your silence has texture, your absence has weight, and your presence leaves questions that echo long after you've gone. Desire is never logical. It does not ask for reason, it demands feeling. The second secret lies in understanding the unconscious desires that bind people, not the polite spoken wants of the surface mind, but the silent yearnings that live in the shadows of the psyche. Every human being walks with a hidden self, and it is that self that decides whom they love, whom they fear, and whom they cannot forget. When you learn to speak the language of the unconscious, attraction stops being random. It becomes something you can sense, shape, and guide. Most people think attraction begins in the eyes or the body, but it truly begins in the nervous system. It is a response to how someone makes us feel, not what they say. The unconscious mind is ancient. It does not care for logic, but for signals: tone, rhythm, energy, confidence, emotional safety. It seeks what is familiar yet slightly forbidden. When a woman feels drawn to a man she cannot explain, it is because her unconscious has recognized something, a pattern, an energy, that mirrors an old emotional imprint. You must understand this. People do not fall for who you are, but for what you awaken within them. The unconscious is a world of opposites. It loves tension, comfort mixed with danger, gentleness touched by power, vulnerability laced with control. When you embody both sides of this polarity, you speak directly to her primal instincts. It's not dominance that attracts. It's the balance between dominance and restraint. It's not charm that hypnotizes. It's the unspoken certainty that you know yourself, even in your darkness. A man who has befriended his shadow, a man who does not run from his own complexity, becomes magnetic, because he reflects the unacknowledged chaos within her. Every woman, like every man, carries an internal archetype of the lover, the protector, the destroyer, and the redeemer. She does not consciously look for them, she feels them. When she senses that you embody these archetypal energies, not through words but through presence, her unconscious recognizes you as something mythic. You become more than a person. You become a symbol. And symbols are addictive because they carry emotional charge. To understand attraction at this depth, you must first study yourself. You cannot awaken another's unconscious if you are a stranger to your own. Most men chase women because they have not yet faced the emptiness within them. They seek validation, not connection. But when you know yourself, your fears, your desires, your wounds, you no longer seek to be filled. You become whole, and wholeness radiates a quiet power that the unconscious instantly detects. People feel safe in your presence, not because you promise safety, but because you embody stability amid chaos. Now, let's speak of emotional addiction. Emotional addiction is born not from pleasure, but from unpredictability. The human brain releases dopamine in moments of uncertainty, when reward and rejection intermingle. The more variable the emotional experience, the deeper the chemical imprint. This is why calm relationships sometimes feel less intoxicating than turbulent ones. But the mature seducer does not manipulate this biology. He understands it. He uses tension and release like an artist uses shadow and light. He gives warmth, then distance, intensity, then calm. Each shift deepens the emotional imprint, but always within the bounds of respect and authenticity. The key is attunement. You must feel when to advance and when to withdraw, when to be silent and when to speak. This rhythm, this subtle dance between attention and space, keeps the unconscious engaged. It's not a trick, it's resonance. The more attuned you are, the more she feels seen, understood, and alive in your presence. Attraction at its highest form is not manipulation. It is harmony between two subconscious worlds recognizing each other. At a deeper level, this understanding moves beyond psychology and enters philosophy. To truly connect with another person, you must first accept that they are not yours to control. You can invite but never possess. You can inspire desire but never demand devotion. The unconscious responds not to ownership, but to freedom. When a woman feels that you understand her impulses without trying to cage them, she experiences a rare emotion: trust. And trust, when fused with attraction, becomes obsession. The sexual aspect of this understanding is profound. The unconscious does not separate emotion from sexuality. It experiences them as one. This is why the most powerful form of desire arises when emotional depth meets physical tension. When you connect not only through body but through psyche, you ignite something spiritual. The union becomes symbolic. It transcends pleasure and touches the archetypal longing to merge, to dissolve the boundaries of self. This is what all souls secretly crave. Not just touch, but recognition through touch. You must also recognize that every woman carries an emotional history written into her nervous system. When you interact with her, you're not only meeting her present self, but all the selves she has ever been. Her hopes, her heartbreaks, her innocence, her rage. To touch her heart is to speak to those invisible selves with respect and understanding. When you can hold space for her complexity without fear, She will see you as rare, because most men demand simplicity where depth exists. To influence the unconscious is not to manipulate, it is to awaken. You do not impose emotion. You reveal it. You do not force desire. You guide it back to its source. When you can see beneath the mask and respond to the feeling beneath the words, you cease to be just another presence in her life. You become the mirror of her hidden self, and that, in truth, is what every soul longs for, not to be impressed, but to be understood without explanation. So remember this, the power of attraction does not lie in performance but in perception. Learn to feel the undercurrents, not just the surface. See the child behind the woman, the longing behind the laughter, the fear behind the strength. When you connect with that invisible part of her, you are no longer a man she meets. You become the man she remembers. Power without empathy is tyranny, and empathy without power is weakness. The third secret is the balance between dominance and empathy, an understanding that attraction thrives where strength meets sensitivity. Every human being, whether they admit it or not, yearns for a presence that feels both safe and powerful, capable of leading yet willing to listen. This balance is what separates the fleeting charm of manipulation from the enduring magnetism of genuine influence. It's not about control. It's about containment, the ability to hold space for another's chaos without being consumed by it. When a woman feels your strength, she feels protected. When she feels your empathy, she feels seen. But when she feels both at once, she feels alive. The masculine force that draws her is not aggression or authority. It is direction, consciousness, and stability. It is the energy that says, I can hold what you cannot. This is the essence of true dominance, not the need to command, but the ability to contain. It is a quiet, grounded confidence that doesn't demand submission, but naturally inspires it. Most people misunderstand dominance. They associate it with control or superiority, but its real nature is responsibility. To dominate is to be deeply attuned to the needs and emotions of another, while remaining unmoved by their storms. Empathy, on the other hand, is the ability to feel into another's emotional reality without losing the center of your own. When you merge the two, you create an emotional polarity that awakens something primal, a balance of power and safety, desire and trust. In psychological terms, this polarity speaks directly to the archetypal structures within the psyche. The feminine unconscious responds not merely to kindness or affection, but to presence. Presence is the spiritual dimension of masculinity. It is the stillness that allows emotion to unfold without judgment. When your presence is strong enough, she can release her defenses because she feels the field of your awareness holding her. Empathy without boundaries breeds emotional chaos, but empathy supported by inner strength becomes transformative. It allows both people to transcend their individual fears and touch something sacred. Many men today are afraid of their own dominance. They've been taught that power corrupts, that strength is dangerous. But repression of power does not make you kind. It makes you hollow. A man disconnected from his strength cannot offer safety, and without safety, no woman can surrender emotionally or sexually. Likewise, men who lean too heavily on dominance without empathy lose touch with the soul of connection. They may attract for a moment, but they never inspire devotion. The art is to embody both, to have a heart capable of compassion and a spine unbent by pressure. Empathy is not softness, it is intelligence of the heart. To feel deeply and accurately requires strength. You must be willing to observe without absorbing, to listen without losing yourself. When you can meet her in her emotional landscape, when you can understand her feelings without trying to fix or flee them, you become more than a lover. You become an anchor. She begins to associate your presence with peace, your silence with safety. That is what addiction to a person truly is, the feeling that their presence restores equilibrium. Attraction deepens when a woman feels that her emotions do not scare you. When she rages, when she doubts, when she withdraws, your steadiness becomes a mirror in which she sees her own strength reflected back. The unconscious interprets that steadiness as mastery, and mastery is erotic. The balance of dominance and empathy creates this mastery. It is not an act, but a state of being. You do not need to try to appear strong or understanding. You become so by knowing yourself completely. The more you have integrated your own fears and emotions, the more naturally you can hold the emotions of others. There is also a profound sexual dimension to this balance. The erotic field between man and woman mirrors the psychological one, polarity. She desires to feel depth of presence, to feel her emotions safely explored and expanded through connection. The masculine energy penetrates not just physically but psychically. It enters through awareness, attention, and control. When combined with empathy, this becomes an act of reverence rather than domination. True intimacy is not an act of taking but of guiding. You lead not by force, but by the gravity of your calm. Philosophically, this principle speaks to the eternal tension between chaos and order. The feminine is the current, the wave, the emotion. The masculine is the container, the riverbank that gives direction to her flow. Without the bank, water floods and dissipates. Without the water, the bank is dry and lifeless. They complete each other, not through control but through complementarity. This is the forgotten truth of polarity. Each strengthens the other by remaining fully itself. To embody this balance, you must cultivate two things: awareness and restraint. Awareness allows you to perceive the emotional field of another. Restraint prevents you from reacting impulsively to it. The man who reacts loses power. The man who listens, feels, and chooses consciously becomes magnetic. He radiates the energy of a mountain, unshaken, enduring, quietly vast. Around such a presence, emotion can move freely, love can grow deeply, and desire can ignite endlessly. The modern world teaches men to be either soft or hard, sensitive or stoic, open or closed. But the truth is not in the extremes. It's in the integration. The most powerful man is not the one who controls others, but the one who controls himself. The most desirable man is not the one who dominates, but the one who contains, the one who can hold another person's heart without crushing it. When you embody this fusion of strength and empathy, you no longer chase attraction, it finds you. Your energy speaks for you long before your words do. You become both a challenge and a comfort, both fire and home. And that combination is irresistible because it is complete. So remember this: true power does not roar, it resonates. True empathy does not dissolve you, it deepens you. The secret is not to choose between being strong or kind. It is to become the kind of strength that feels like kindness. Because in the end, the heart surrenders not to dominance nor to sympathy, but to the rare man who can hold both within the same breath. Every connection, whether fleeting or eternal, is a mirror. We do not truly see others. We see ourselves reflected through them. The fourth secret lies in emotional mirroring and projection, the art of becoming a reflection of another's hidden self. It is not imitation, but resonance, the ability to embody through your awareness and energy what another person unconsciously seeks to experience. When done with consciousness, this creates an almost magnetic bond, because the human psyche cannot resist its own reflection. Attraction begins when someone feels recognized, not for what they show but for what they hide. Every woman, like every man, carries within her a constellation of desires, fears, and archetypes. Some she knows well, others buried deep in the shadow. She longs for someone who can touch those hidden layers without judgment, who can mirror them back to her with understanding. When you become that mirror, she experiences not merely attraction but revelation. She begins to see herself through you, and that vision intoxicates her far more than any physical pleasure ever could. Psychologically, this is the essence of projection. When two people meet, each unconsciously projects parts of themselves onto the other, qualities they admire, reject, or repress. A woman might project her inner fire, her chaos, or her longing for freedom onto a man who carries those traits openly. She does not consciously know why she feels drawn to him, but her soul recognizes something familiar, something she once silenced within herself. He becomes the embodiment of her unspoken narrative. To master this dynamic is not to manipulate it, but to understand it. When you sense what she projects onto you, you can hold that projection with awareness. You don't need to confirm it or deny it. You simply become conscious of what she sees in you. That consciousness alone transforms the interaction. Most people react unconsciously to projection. They either reject it or get lost in it. But the aware man stands still within it. He lets her see what she needs to see, while remaining anchored in who he truly is. This is how you become both fantasy and truth, a reflection of her psyche, but also a guide out of illusion. Mirroring is not mimicry. It's not about copying her tone, her gestures, or her words. It's about attunement. It's the ability to tune into her emotional frequency so that she feels, perhaps for the first time, deeply understood without explanation. When you mirror her emotions with authenticity, when your eyes, your silence, your breathing echo her inner state, her nervous system relaxes. The unconscious translates this as bonding. She feels safe enough to be vulnerable, and in that vulnerability, attachment begins to grow. At the same time, mirroring her does not mean losing yourself in her emotions. The purpose is not to dissolve, but to reflect. Our true mirror is not blurred by what it reflects. It simply reveals. You must remain the still center, the grounded presence through which her emotions can move and transform. If you get pulled into her turbulence, you lose polarity. If you stay detached, you lose empathy. The art lies in the in-between, being deeply present, emotionally attuned, yet entirely sovereign. There is also a sexual depth to this principle. In physical intimacy, mirroring becomes an almost mystical exchange. Desire itself is a language of reflection. Each movement, each breath, each pause is an echo of the other's energy. The most powerful seduction happens when your awareness becomes so attuned that you begin to anticipate her rhythm, to respond not from thought, but from intuition. In those moments, individuality dissolves and what remains is unity, the merging of two unconscious minds through the body. This is why true intimacy feels transcendent. It's not two people touching, but two psyches recognizing themselves through the experience of the other. Philosophically, mirroring speaks to a universal truth. We are all seeking to return to ourselves. Every relationship is a journey towards self-recognition. What we call love, attraction, or even obsession, is often the longing to reclaim lost parts of our own soul, mirrored back through another's presence. When you understand this, your relationships stop being a quest for possession and become a process of awakening. You stop asking, how can I make her love me? And start asking, what part of herself can she rediscover through me? That shift in awareness is the difference between a manipulator and a master. To mirror effectively, you must cultivate inner emptiness, not a lack, but a receptive stillness. When your mind is noisy, you project your own needs and fears onto others. But when you are still, you become a vessel through which the other's essence reveals itself. This is why silence is seductive. A quiet mind creates space for another to unfold. She feels that you are not trying to impose anything upon her, not trying to mold her into your idea of who she should be. She feels free to be herself, and freedom is the most powerful aphrodisiac there is. In the deeper layers of mirroring, something sacred occurs. When you reflect back her strength when she feels weak, her beauty when she feels unseen, her peace when she feels lost, you awaken in her a remembrance of who she truly is. She begins to associate your presence with her highest self. You are no longer just a man in her life. You become the mirror through which she glimpses her potential. That is why she cannot let go. Not because you have taken something from her, but because through you she has found something. But remember, with this power comes responsibility. If you awaken someone's depths without integrity, you create dependence. If you mirror with authenticity and awareness, you create transformation. The goal is not to bind another to you, but to help them become more themselves in your presence. That is the true art of influence, not to dominate or manipulate, but to awaken. The mind is drawn to what reflects it. The heart is bound to what understands it. The soul is devoted to what completes it. When you master emotional mirroring, you become all three. You stop chasing affection and start embodying resonance. People feel seen around you, and that is the most addictive feeling of all. So remember this: what we love most in others is what we have forgotten in ourselves. Become the mirror that reflects not fantasy, but truth, and you will never need to chase connection again, because the world will always be drawn to the one who reminds it of its own soul.